What's up, bitches?
Let's talk about crime. What's up, bitches?
What's up, bitches? We're in a whole new setup right now. It's really crazy. Normally, we're in a setup where we're sitting in like chairs in an office
with a table,
with tables and desks and stuff. We are sitting in Sierra's bedroom with a board with our mics connected to the board. I'm sitting in her chair for like her computer desk, and she's sitting on her bed.
I'm in the process of moving. So
she is.
That's why.
She is. Yeah. Like this area we're in is going to become the podcasting studio, but right now she lives here. So it's podcasting studio without the actual studio. So there's that. But anyways, I don't really think there's anything.
Oh, if you guys have any recommendations of somebody that we should do for a Halloween special, let us know. Because I'm going to have my mom do a bunch of research on criminals and crimes that happened either on Halloween or that basically like a movie was created because of that crime or that criminal, but specifically for like Halloween time frame. So if you guys have any recommendations, please reach out to us and let us know, and we'll take a look at them and see if it's one that we want to feature for this Halloween. And if not this Halloween, then maybe next Halloween, and so on and so forth.
For real. Anything else you want to talk about, or shall we just get into this episode?
Let's get into it.
Okay. Don't talk shit at all, because this is a case. This is one of those cases where it's kind of like, fuck, I don't know. And I want your opinion on it at the end, but I don't know. I really don't know. So the person that we're going to be talking about is still alive and is currently fighting to get out of jail. So there is that. That's the spoiler alert, but we're just going to get into it. We are talking about a man named Jeremy Bamber, and he is responsible for the White House Farm murders. This happened in 1985, and this happened in, bear with me here, Tolesant, Darcy. I wish I was fucking...
What?
I wish I was fucking British, because I'd be able to say that so much better.
What the fuck?
Tolesant, Darcy. In Essex. It's just the place.
Tolesant, Darcy.
Yeah, that sounded Irish. Anyways, that's where it was. That's where it is. And I suck at fucking pronouncing or the enunciation of other. Actually, I can't even say other countries, like names of their cities and towns, because I fucking butcher them here in the United States too.
I would say we live in the state of Washington. You know how many names in the state of Washington for cities?
Like Wakayakam, right? Like I don't even know if that's how you say it, or Temecula. Like there's all these words that I'm like,
yeah,
I can't say them correctly. So apologies to anybody from London. I know I totally butchered that, and I am very sorry. If anybody wants to record that, like send it to me. I will put it in there. Anyways, okay, so that's what we're talking about. So first, we're going to do a little background on Jeremy. We'll do a little bit of background like on the other people, but Jeremy is I want people to remember that when we do these podcasts, it is not, it sounds rude, it is not to focus on the victims. It is to focus on the person that did the crime, because I'm very interested in what makes their brain work. It's not to be mean to the families, but I do more research on the killers than I do anything else. So Jeremy Bamber was born January 13th, 1961. He was actually born Jeremy Paul Marsham, and he was born in St. Mary Abbott's Hospital in Kensington, London. And his birth mother is Juliet Wheeler. Now, Juliet has an affair with a man who worked in Buckingham Palace, where the Queen lived. And so,
are we gonna name drop some people?
No, because I don't even know his name, but I know it was an officer of some sort. Mm-hmm. Okay, so obviously that shit
my ass.
That shit don't work out. Well, that's a lie. That they were not ready to have a baby, so she gives him up for adoption, and she goes through the Church of England Children's Society. Now, Neville and June Bamber are the ones that adopt Jeremy, and they adopt him when he's 6 months old. Now, this is kind of a jump forward, but after Jeremy is actually arrested for the murder, that's when his biological parents actually get told that he had been arrested. Because again, they didn't really have anything to do with him. And at that time, they were married and they both worked at the Buckingham Palace. Just so you know. So it did work out. Just the baby didn't work out at the moment.
Scandal.
So anyways, oh, I see what you're saying. I was like, what are you talking about? You're talking about like the king or the fucking...
Yeah. You know what? I fucking started watching The Crown, okay?
So would you say, let's see here, 1985. So that would be... Who's
the like
king?
Princess Diana time frame?
Yeah. Well, who's the king right now? What's his name?
George.
No, it's... How do you not know their name?
You just fucking asked me who it is.
You just said you watched the fucking Crown.
Not all the way to current day.
No, who is her son?
Who?
Queen Elizabeth. Who's her son? The one that just took over King
George.
His name is not fucking George.
Oh my fucking God, I'm looking this up.
It's not George. What is his name? Why am I like... It's Princess Diana's ex-husband. What is his name?
Oh, Charles.
Charles.
The third.
So 1985 could very well have been King Charles. Now
I
King
mean,
Charles.
He was born in 48.
So yeah, I mean, he could.
So he would have been in his 40s.
Totally. And he was a womanizer. Okay, well, whatever. He
the whole Princess
could
Diana,
not be.
Just saying.
I'm just saying. Okay. So anyways, Jeremy ends up attending St. Nicholas Primary School, and then he goes on to Malden Court, which is actually a private prep school. And then in September of 1970, so at this point he's like 9 years old, he ends up getting sent to Gresham School, which is a boarding school in Holt, Norfolk. And I don't really know why. There's no reasons why. I do know that the Bamber family, had quite a bit of money. So it kind of sounds like he started out at like this little primary school and then goes into a private school. And then boarding school is just a thing, I think, for like rich people. Like, send your kids away to boarding school, I guess. Jeremy ends up leaving Gresham School with no real qualifications, meaning that like he didn't even graduate with like his diploma type thing. Like, he didn't do anything. And of course, Neville, the father, is like, what the fuck? I'm paying for you to go to school and you don't, whatever. So he's not an idiot though. He ends up going to the sixth form college in Colchester, and he manages to pass 7 O levels. Now, what I found out was 7 O levels is like basically a test for general education requirements, kind of like the GED here in the United States. So he was able to test high enough to be in college, basically, and he was smart enough to get past those levels without much coming from his previous like childhood learning, right? So
he probably wasn't lazy. He was probably, there's a chance
he could have been too smart. 100%.
And so why the fuck are you going to put in the effort when you already know,
which is a thing,
it comes very quickly? Because I was going to say, I went to high school with people who were like
that.
It's
a thing. So he does end up leaving the college in 1978. So he is 17 years old and he leaves. After leaving the school, he goes to Australia for scuba diving lessons. And he also goes to New Zealand because that's all kind of in the place. And this was all paid for by his dad, Neville Bamber. And while he's in New Zealand, he actually ends up smuggling heroin overseas. So he went from like this really smart kid, maybe lazy, to like drug dealer. He also breaks into a jewelry shop and steals 2 very expensive watches. And he actually gives one of them to his girlfriend that's back in the UK. It was also claimed that Jeremy left New Zealand in a very quick fashion because he had been involved in an armed robbery and he knew they were coming after him. So he does end up returning to the UK and he ends up working in bars and restaurants. So this guy, like, right? Okay, he comes from, obviously he's
so like up and down, back and forth.
Right. It's almost like, I mean, maybe, I guess you could say maybe he was spoiled. I don't know. Some of the stuff that I read about June Bamber, who is the wife or his adoptive mother, is that she was very religious and very strict. So sometimes that causes people to go rogue and do their own thing. So maybe that's what it was. Maybe, there's more. There's more. Let me just say that. So he ends up working in bars and restaurants. And then after a little bit of time that he's working in the bars and restaurants, he actually ends up talking to his dad and agrees that he's going to come home and he will work on the family farm. Prior to this, he did not want to do that because he basically didn't get paid what he felt was fair wages to work on the farm. In my mind, y'all worked at the coffee shop for free. So when we had our coffee shop, when you have a family-owned business, you just fucking show up, right? He was not willing to do that, okay? In return for him working on the farm, he was given a car, a cottage, and he was also paid to work there. He also owned 8% of his family's caravan sites, which they had a shit ton of property that they would allow people to like camp and stuff on. And it was under the O'Shea Road Campsites Ltd. So it was a corporation, and he owned 8% like of that, which is a lot considering it's like just fucking open land.
I don't know if it picked up on the mics, but if you guys hear like what sounds like construction in the background, my dad's just putting stuff on the walls.
He's building me a reading nook.
Yeah. No, I just like I don't know if it actually picked up or not, but I heard it through the headphones. So if you guys hear it, just ignore it.
Just ignore the man with the hammer in the back.
It's a podcast, so it's also real life shit. You're gonna hear background noise.
And if any of you have listened to Fatal Blend, you know, because I just
hear our dogs whine so often.
I just talked about the reading nook on Fatal Blend not too long ago about how I've been hinting at it, and I fucking got it. Just so you know. Okay. Anyways, okay, so that's pretty much where we're going to leave Jeremy right now. So we'll talk a little bit about Neville and June. So they were very wealthy farmers. They lived in a very large house at White House Farm near Tolleson Darcy in Essex.
Tolleson Darcy.
I want to say that so bad in the right way. I do. Neville is actually also a local magistrate, which is basically a justice of the peace. And he is a former RAF Royal Air Force pilot. And he's a farmer. So he's got a decent background. Now, Neville and June couldn't have been terrible people because they actually adopted a little girl in 1957. So 4 years before they adopted Jeremy. And her name is Sheila. And then they again adopt Jeremy in 1961. So they obviously like couldn't have kids or something. And they just chose to adopt children instead. So that, you know, that's how it is. Now, I really debated going into too much background on Sheila. I don't want to go into a lot of background on Sheila because there is so much weird information. She has an ex-husband who says one thing, other people claim others. So I'm just going to all I'm going to say is that Sheila was older. She was also adopted, and she suffered from some mental health issues, including schizophrenia, in her life. I'm not going to go into too much crazy detail about her because, one, she's a victim in this case, and I feel it's unfair to try to paint her as anything else. Two, there's more to this story. As we get into it, you'll understand this is why there's questions. Okay? It's just too much. Were you wanting to say something?
Oh, no, I found out a pronunciation for it.
Oh, God. Okay, what is it? Tolleson
Darcy.
Tolleson Darcy.
There you go.
I still can't say it right. Like that guy just is so much better than me. God dang it. Anyways, okay. So I'm going to bring you some facts that are leading up to like the murders. Okay. This is we're doing this one very different because the information out there was so scattered. It was really crazy. Now on August 4th, 1985, Sheila, which is Jeremy's sister, and her 2 boys show up to the farmhouse to visit for the weekend. Now, according to the housekeeper, everything seemed very fine. Everything was good. Everybody was happy. Now, Sheila had been diagnosed with schizophrenia, and she had suffered some mental health issues throughout her life. So her family kind of took that into consideration when she came around. By this time in her life, she has 2 children. She is divorced at this time. She's here visiting her family for whatever reason. Now on August 6th, so 2 days later, Jeremy now is telling this this is after the fact, after he's been talked to. This is what he says. He says that his parents had actually suggested to Sheila that she places her children up into a daytime foster care. And her response to that was, I mean, whatever. Like she didn't seem bothered by that. Now, I'll be honest with you. I think a daytime foster care is like daycare, what we in the United States call daycare. I don't think it's like
I mean, that would make sense.
Right. Because it's a day foster home. So I think they were just basically telling her like, hey, maybe.
Which I mean, makes sense.
Well, and again, she's dealing with some mental health issues, right? And so they're basically trying to help her out by saying, listen, I think you need to put the kids in a daytime foster care so that during the day you can focus on yourself and your kids aren't dealing with it. She did tell them, I mean, whatever, but like, I would rather stay in London. So she was living in London at the time. And she was like, I'd rather stay in London. I don't really, because I think maybe their suggestion might have even been something more like move here, put the kids in a daytime foster care type thing. Again, she's divorced at this time, but she did actually have help with help from her ex-husband on raising the boys. Like, he didn't like disappear. They just went their separate ways, and he would have the kids and then he would share with her. And this is just how it was. So then around 9:30 p.m. on August 6th, one of the farm workers said that he heard Jeremy leave the house. Now, around the same time, the farm secretary, okay, so this is giving you an idea of how much money these people had. They had housekeepers, farm workers, and secretaries in their property.
Obviously, it makes me think that it was kind of like a bed and breakfast.
No. These people lived there because they worked there. They were given like just like Jeremy was. He had his own cottage, which I think is adorable. I want a cottage. He had a cottage, and he was able to use a car in exchange for working.
It makes me think of the Winchester house.
Yeah.
When they would get employed
that's
there,
what it kind of, yes.
Like housing.
Yes, that's basically what it was. So at around 9:30 as well, the farm secretary actually had called Neville to speak to him about some stuff. And she noted that he seemed kind of angry and that he he was flustered. Like, he had just gotten into an argument. Like, he wasn't mad at her, but he was very like short and was very just like quick and like whatever. I always want to say the word brusque, but that is not a fucking word. He was very, that's
what?
Like a brute, but like, I don't
husk.
No.
Are you?
I don't know what the word is. I always say this.
I mean, there's Brisk, which is a nice tea brand, but
no, it's like he's just like short and like, I don't know, brusque. I'm gonna just fucking make brusque a word. Anyways, so she said it was kind of weird, and when he hung up with her, he actually hung up kind of irritated, not at her, but just irritated by what they were talking about. And she said that was not. Like, that didn't fit who he was. He was never typically like that. Now around 10 p.m., so a half an hour.
Holy shit, brusque is a word.
What does it mean? What does it mean?
It means being abrupt, direct, or brief in speech or manner.
Yes!
It can also be rude.
Yes! Bitch! I feel so liberated right now because I have said that word multiple times and people are like, what the fuck is brusque? And they make fun of me. And oh my God, I was right. It's a fucking yes, brusque, baby. Yes, he was brusque. I am saying it.
Oh my God.
Yes. Okay. So then around 10 p.m., so a half an hour later, June's sister actually calls the home and speaks with Sheila first, which again is the sister. And she says, Sheila seemed like she was kind of quiet, which I don't think was normal for Sheila. So that was a little weird. And then she said, but then she talked to June and June seemed like totally normal and everything was fine. So this is, again, leading up to the murder. Now in the early morning of August 7th, so, 3-4 o'clock in the morning, Jeremy ends up calling the non-emergency police line in his town. And he calls them from his home, from his cottage that he's at. He basically tells them like, my dad just called me and said that my sister has gone berserk with a gun. And they were like, okay. So the police head out to the home. Jeremy heads out to the home. And at 7:54 a.m., the police finally enter the White House farm home. And when they get in, they use a sledgehammer to get in because it has been locked from the inside, so the door is locked. They end up finding 5 bodies with multiple gunshot wounds. Neville is downstairs in the kitchen, and all of the rest of everybody else is upstairs. 25 shots total were fired, and most of them were at close range. Now, they had like 3 or 4 landline phones in the house, because again, this is 1985. And there was a telephone that was lying with it off the hook in the kitchen. Now, a side note to that is that telephone is actually the phone didn't belong in the kitchen. It actually belonged in his office, but it had been brought into the kitchen. And there was a phone in the kitchen, but it was like a cordless one. And that receiver was gone. They didn't know where it was. So that was a little sus. There was also 22. There were 22. There was an empty 22.22. It's fucking guns, people. It's the ammo,
like a 22 caliber,
like a 22 caliber ammo cartridge next to the phone. There were chairs and stools that were overturned. There were broken dishes, a broken sugar basin, and listen to what I'm saying because this is very important. So just hear me out. Again, chairs and stools are overturned, broken dishes, broken sugar basin, a broken ceiling light, and there's blood on the floor. Now, Neville is found in the kitchen in his pajamas, and there is definitely sign of a struggle. I feel like we're playing a game of Clue as I'm reading these to you. He has been...
Colonel Mustard with the candlestick in the kitchen.
I say Mrs. White.
Yeah.
So he has been shot 8 times, 6 of them to the head and face at extreme close ranges, like touching the skin with the barrel of the gun. The remaining shots were taken from about 2 feet away. Now, based on the evidence, they concluded that he had actually been shot 4 times upstairs and made his way downstairs, fought like a fucking beast mode, and was shot the other 4 times in the kitchen. And he was beaten really badly. June is on the floor near the bedroom door in her bedroom, in Neville's bedroom. She's on the floor near the door. She's also in her nightgown, and she has been shot 7 times. One of these was actually in between her eyes and her forehead. Now, Daniel and Nicholas, the twin boys, they were found in their beds in their room, and Daniel was shot 5 times and Nicholas was shot 3 times. And then Sheila was found next to June in the same bedroom on the floor. Now, she was in her nightgown as well, and she had been shot twice, and both of them were under her chin, but one of them was in her throat and one was like up through her chin. One of the wounds had happened from 3 inches away, and the other was a contact shot, meaning the barrel was on the skin. Now, there is a rifle that is found without the silencer, without a telescopic lens, which normally there was those things. It was laying next to Sheila's body, and the barrel was facing upwards towards her chin.
Well, that right there doesn't make any sense.
Okay, but why?
Because if you shoot yourself, you're not going to stay in that position.
Okay. But their thought was, well, because of this, let's put it this way. They automatically go, oh, this is fucking murder-suicide. Number 1, Jeremy called us and said that his sister went crazy with a gun. Number 2, everybody in this house is dead. They've all suffered multiple gunshot wounds. The only one who's only had 2 is Sheila. And also, the gun is literally with her body, and the gun is still facing upward like she shot herself in the face.
Yeah, but I wouldn't.
Twice.
With the whole... like them saying there was a struggle and stuff, I wouldn't put that in a murder-suicide situation.
Well, if she shot everybody first, right? So what their thought is that Sheila maybe shot her boys first and then shot her mom and then shot her dad, and her dad ran downstairs to like get help, and she chased him down there and they fought, right? That's basic. And then she kills him.
Yeah, but then why would she go back up
and then goes back upstairs and kills herself? No, just to the mom. Listen, just hear. Okay. So they automatically think this is a murder-suicide. Because then the other thought is maybe she killed the dad first and then went upstairs, right? Okay, so this is what they're thinking. So the detectives are like basically certain that this is a murder-suicide, that he didn't actually want to hear any other explanations or anything that could be explained about anything in the crime scene in the beginning, because he was like, no, like this is open and shut case. Because of it's a murder-suicide, they didn't preserve the scene. So they didn't take care of it. They fucking picked shit up without gloves on. They stepped all over the crime scene. This is very JonBenet, very fucking JonBenet. They didn't do anything that would make it to where they could come back and see.
It makes me think too of like the Idaho 4.
Yeah, because they tore the fucking house down, right?
The case is even closed.
They basically just botched that shit. They also gave Jeremy the keys to his parents' home. They gave them back to him only 3 days later. So they only looked into this for 3 days. Because it's a murder-suicide on August 10th. So this happened on August 7th. So this is the 3 days later. One of Jeremy's cousins is also at the farmhouse. Like the families are at the farmhouse. One of Jeremy's cousins finds that there's a silencer that's in a cupboard, and it appears to have flecks of red paint and blood on it. They end up bringing this he shows it to somebody else, like another cousin. And then they're kind of like, something's not right here. So they bring that to the police. They go back to the house and they're looking around now because they're like, it's just weird because there's like paint on it. And that's weird because this is Neville's guns and Neville took like really good care of his guns. So there's no way he has a silencer with fucking paint on it. So they start looking around and they end up finding in the kitchen, there's like a mantle and it's painted red. And there's a chunk missing, like a big scratch. So they go to the cops come back and they're like, holy shit, that's an exact match. And they're like, holy shit, this silencer is what caused the damage on this thing. And the paint matches, right? So they're able to they actually do like match it. They know that they know now that this silencer at some point hit this mantle and scratched it. They believe at this point that that silencer was on that rifle when Neville was fighting for his life. Makes sense, okay? They are also...
Right, but it doesn't make sense why it wouldn't have been on the gun with her.
We're getting... Yeah, you're right. This is why this is where it starts to change. Weirdly enough, also, the day of the murders, that cupboard was actually searched and nothing was found.
Oh.
So isn't that weird? They just like shows up later. That's weird. They also find Sheila's fingerprint on the gun. But the way her fingerprint was facing means that she would have been pointing the gun downward, not upward, like at the ground. Now, they also find Jeremy's fingerprints, and his fingerprints are found on the butt of the gun and across the gun. Now, his explanation for this was that he actually used that gun quite often to shoot rabbits on the farm because, you know, they like to kill Peter Rabbit because he got into the garden. So that was his explanation. Like he was like, no, I use the gun. I use it all the time and I use it to shoot rabbits. Now, one major reason the silencer becomes important in this scenario is because if the rifle had the silencer on it, there was no feasible, logical way that Sheila could have shot herself because it was too long. Her arms would not have actually been able to reach. Now, her ex-husband also had stated that during this time, she was very heavily medicated due to schizophrenia diagnosis. And he said there was no way that she could have handled a rifle, much less she wouldn't have been able to fight or beat against her 6'4" father when she was like a short 90, I think she was like 98-pound woman. And he also said at that point, she couldn't even like cook like as the British do. He said she couldn't even bake beans because the beans and toast, bitch. She couldn't do any of that. That's how medicated she was. So he's like, that does not make sense. She could not do any of these things you guys are claiming. One other thing is that the crime scene, again, because it was botched from the beginning, like it kind of sucks. The first officer, though, that came in, he did say when he was doing like his notes, his description of Sheila was that her hands and her nails were clean and manicured. She had no signs of a struggle. She didn't have any debris, including sugar, on her bare feet or her body. She also
gunpowder residue.
She also didn't have any heavy lead on her hands, which the gun that was used,
operate the gun.
The gun that was used was loaded at least 3 different times, and each time it would be holding 10 bullets. And there should have been a lot more lead on her fingers if she had used that. Also, it is to be noted that that specific gun multiple people have used in the past, and they all agreed and said that that gun was very hard to load anyways. But for some reason, if you used it a bunch of times in a row, the more you reloaded, the harder it was to reload, meaning that she would have had to reload that bitch 3 times and she was barely capable of holding shit in general. Okay. And you're correct. She had nothing on her hands. She did, I guess she had a small amount of lead, but they said it wasn't.
But not enough to equate a mass murder.
No.
In a
and
household.
The no debris.
And just how many shots each person had in their body.
That she had nothing on her body, her feet. Let's just talk about her feet. If she's running around barefoot killing people and then she goes down and fights her dad who breaks dishes and breaks the sugar basin, you would think she'd at least have glass or sugar. Fucking sugar gets at little tiny granules of sugar. Even if you don't want them on your body, they get there. Nothing. And then her hands are clean. Her hands are manicured. So you're expecting us to believe that she beat the shit out of her dad and didn't break a fucking nail? You're shitting me. You know, you fight
Bro,
dogs.
I break a fucking nail just trying to get a goddamn piece of tape off the damn roll.
Exactly. So you know that this just doesn't maybe make sense, right? Now, Jeremy states that hours before the murders happened, because he had been at the house, remember, that he had actually loaded the rifle himself because he thought he heard the rabbits outside. Now, he then tells them, I did leave the rifle on the kitchen table, and it did have a full magazine and a box of ammunition, and I left.
Nobody's going to talk about that he heard.
Thank you. I'm like, what are you hearing?
We have rabbits in our backyard,
like,
and I don't ever fucking hear them. I see them before I hear them.
Yeah, I don't know what that was all about. I mean, we do. But anyways, here's the thing about these weapons. So Neville owned multiple weapons, and he took very, very good care of them. Now, this particular rifle was actually used to shoot rabbits, and it did have a silencer and a telescopic lens on it because it made it to where he could shoot the rabbits. Because if rabbits hear, they're going to run, and they're fast little fuckers. So he has a silencer, and he also has a telescopic lens so he can see better. And so that's on this rifle. And it is said that the sight Neville never took that sight off, because it was a real big pain in the ass to take it off and put it back on. So he put it on and he said, fucking leave it. So the fact that the sight wasn't on the gun means somebody took it off. And Neville doesn't take off his sight. One of Jeremy's cousins actually said, I literally used that rifle the last weekend of July because I was at the house and I used it for target practice. And the silencer and the lens were on the gun for sure. So literally, this is This is August 7th. So 7 to 10 days before, all of that shit was on the gun. And Neville, again, never took this shit off the gun. So somebody took it off the gun. When they found it at the crime scene, there was no telescopic lens. There was no silencer. Okay, none of those things are on there on a rifle that Neville had never removed any of this from. Now, Jeremy, when he called Chelmsford police station on August 7th from his home in the super early hours. First of all, he didn't call the emergency line, which I don't know about you, but if my dad calls me and says, your sister's gone crazy with a gun, I'm going to call 911. I'm going to call the emergency line and be like, get somebody to my parents' house right now because my sister could potentially try to kill my family.
But also, if I were the dad, the first place I would call would be
911.
911.
Thank you. That me too. I'd be like,
which
holy
I feel
fuck.
like
something
he probably would have too.
And there is no 911 call from him.
Right.
And also, I'd bust my fucking ass over there as fast as I fucking can, right? That's what I'm doing. Well, Jeremy decides that he's going to call the non-emergency line, and he tells them, hey, my dad just called me from the farmhouse, the White House farmhouse. And he told me that Sheila's gone berserk with a gun. And he was like, he's telling him kind of like what the dad said. And he goes, yeah. And honestly, the call went dead in the middle of the conversation. So even more so, I'm going to and they don't have cell phones. So I'm going to call the cops and then I'm going to bust my ass over there. There's also a little bit of a problem with his scenario because at the time that this phone call came in, supposedly, Neville would have actually been beaten so badly and shot and bloodied, and he wouldn't have actually been able to get to the phone. According to when Jeremy says the phone call came in, Neville's dying on the floor. He's not able to call. Okay. He's not able to make that phone call because again, he supposedly calls them right after he receives the phone call, which is like 3:00 in the morning. Well, they're dead at 7:54. He's not calling anybody at 3:00 in the morning. Neville's not calling anybody. So it was actually thought that what had happened was that Jeremy had actually called his home after he killed the family and then left the phone off the hook to make it look like somebody tried to call him. Because that's the other thing is the dad was beaten so badly and bloodied that even if he did grab the phone, there should have been blood on it. And there was no blood on the phone. He also explains that he didn't call the emergency number because he didn't think it would matter how quickly that anyone got there based off of what was going on with his dad. Again,
because you knew they were
or because you knew they were, yeah.
You killed them.
Yeah. Again, okay, so I call, I'm going to bust my ass over to my parents' house as fast as I fucking can. Mind you, you live on the property in a cottage. It should take you all of like 5 fucking minutes to get there.
Well, that's what it would be like now if you had to go to Grandma and Papa's.
Exactly.
Like they're down the road.
Exactly. So he also then, after he hung up with the police, he calls his girlfriend. Okay. And he's like, oh, hey, you know, whatever. He like talks to her for a minute. Now, it's also reported that Jeremy drove very slowly to the house after calling the police because the police actually passed him on the road to the house. I'm saying, right? I'm like, I don't know how this is working out. So finally, okay, so on September 7th, 1985, so this is a month later, Julie Mugford, which is Jeremy's girlfriend, she actually tells the police that she thinks Jeremy killed his family. So this is 1 month later. And by the way, like during this month, he has been like, they take pictures of him and his girlfriend like at the funerals, and he's like crying and, you know, whatever, doing the whole thing. She had prior to that been like, no, I don't think he did it. Well, she ends up calling them a month later and she's like, yeah, I think he killed his family. And she tells them that he had actually talked about getting rid of his family before. She said that he had wanted to kill his parents because he felt like they were ruining his life. And he also said that Sheila would be a good scapegoat. And he said that her twin boys were disturbed little kids anyways, so it didn't matter. So he had said this to her. He also had supposedly called her at 9:50 p.m. the night of the murder, so August 6th, of the murder, and told her that he was really angry and it was tonight or never. That's okay. And again, remember, he left his...
So why didn't she say any of this? Like,
because she was his girlfriend. Because she asked him directly and he said no. She said, did you kill your family? And he was like, no.
I mean, I feel like, I don't know. I don't know. Maybe I'm too much of a crime junkie to...
I'm not trusting that shit. I'm not trusting that shit.
No.
If my boyfriend... Well, I have a husband, but if my husband were to look at me and be like, I fucking hate my family, I want to kill them, and this is how I do it, and then a couple fucking weeks later, he looks at me and says, it's now or never, and then they end up dead. Yep, I'm thinking you're it there, buddy. There is no ifs, ands, or buts.
Simon says you.
True story. Here we go. So she tells him all the stuff. At 3 a.m., so okay, again, he calls her 9:50, tells her thing. At 3 a.m., he then calls her again, and he says, everything is going fine. There's something wrong at the farm. I haven't slept all night. Bye, honey. I love you lots. Which also, bitch, if you're calling me at 3 a.m. to tell me everything's fine, I'm going to stab you my motherfucking self the next day because I'm asleep. Why the fuck you calling me at 3 a.m.? So she says that. Then she says that he later calls her in the morning. So now it's like morning of August 7th. And he's like, hey, there's some cops that are going to come and get you. Basically, my sister went mad. That's what he tells her. So these cops pick her up. She goes, they bring her to the house. He immediately grabs her and says, I should have been an actor. Okay, this is what he tells her. Now, when Julie asks him if he killed his family, he said no. But he told her he paid a friend 2,000 pounds to do it. He said, everything was fine until Neville put up a fight, and then the friend got mad and shot him 7 times. He also claimed that the friend made Sheila shoot herself and then put the Bible on her chest to make it look religious, because again, they were a religious family. Again, this is like one of those...
There wasn't anything about a Bible, though.
I didn't say that part. There is a Bible. But it's like, not... Whoa. The Bible, when they found the Bible, is actually next to the body. It wasn't on her chest, but there was a Bible. That makes me feel like the people who call in to places and say, my friend wants to know how to fix their love life, and then tell what their quote unquote friend did, but they're talking about themselves. Like, to me, Neville is, or not Neville.
The whole asking for a friend.
Yeah. Jeremy
really
is asking. Yeah. Jeremy's asking for a friend, but really it's him. He's telling what his friend, AKA Jeremy, did. On September 8th, 1985, Jeremy, and he's actually got a friend. They are both arrested, but his friend, who he supposedly paid, actually had a solid ass alibi for that night and is released from jail because he didn't fucking do it.
Also some fucking friend, man. Like, I'm just saying.
Yeah.
Like, I'd fucking hate your ass if you fucking tried to bring me down for murder.
For real.
Fuck you.
So Jeremy ends up getting charged with breaking into... Okay, so this thing was so scattered. It was hard to put it all into one thing. So Jeremy gets charged with breaking into one of the caravan sites and stealing 980 pounds from the site. but he is released on bail on September 13th. Then he decides he's going to go on vacation. Okay, so when he gets arrested, when Jeremy and his friend
he wasn't arrested for murder.
He wasn't arrested for murder in the beginning, and when he was arrested in September 8th, they didn't have enough shit to keep him there for murder, but they did have enough to charge him with the stealing from the caravan site. But he made bail, and he was released September 13th. So he was in jail for like 5 days, but he was initially arrested for the murder, and then they don't have the evidence really to hold him. So then they're like, what else can we do? And they're like, fuck, we can charge him with breaking into the fucking caravan site. So they do that, but he makes bail. So he gets out. Cause I mean, they set a bail, you get out. If you have the money, you go. And he had the money. So he goes. So he decides he's going to go on a vacation, because that's what one does after your parents and sister were just murdered. So he goes on a vacation, and he actually tries to sell.
You'd want me to go to Disney?
If you brought my ashes with you.
I'm just saying.
Yeah. You're right. I wouldn't want you to sit at home and cry. I'd want you to go, I need to remember my mom. Go on to pirate in your will, in the pirate water.
In your will, you and Dad should put something about Disney.
Go to Disney. Sell all my shit and sell all my shit and buy a membership to fucking Club 33. If you can get in.
Listen, I smelled the rich last time.
She did. We stood at the fucking Club 33 door.
It opened twice, and I swear to God, I've smelt and felt richer than I've ever felt in my life. I could taste the green.
Anyways, so he goes on vacation, and he also tries to sell his lifelong story, because that's what you do. And he also tried to sell nude photos of Sheila, his sister that was killed. But, he was so sad about his family, right? So then he's arrested again on September 29th, 1985, and he is charged with the murders, and his trial lasts 18 days, and he is found guilty of all 5 murders and sentenced to 5 life sentences. Now, this actually changed to a whole life sentence, meaning that he gets no parole ever. So in I think Australia does this too, but in the United Kingdom, you can get a life sentence, but a lot of the times it carries like a 30-year minimum. Or the judge can actually turn it into a whole life, meaning they can never get out. And that's what a judge did. So Jeremy has appealed this sentence multiple times. In 1989, in 1994, in 2002, all of them were denied. Then again in 2008 and 2012, he actually lost appeals against the whole life tariff. So then he went from trying to just get the whole life tariff removed. Those were also denied. He is currently serving time in the HM prison in Wakefield. That's where it sits right now. However, as of 2023, so literally last year, there is a chance he's going to be able to get out of jail. And it has to do with, I don't even remember. I couldn't really understand exactly what it is, but it's there's all these, he's got lawyers, some lawyers that know some shit. There's loopholes, and they're going to try to get him on loopholes. So this is the story in its full. Could his sister potentially have done this? Yes, she could have. However, there would have to have been no silencer. There would have to have been, the site doesn't really matter, but there had to have been no silencer. The other thing is they were saying that when they looked at her injuries, she was shot twice in the chin, which, to be honest with you, if you're murder-suicide, you're not shooting yourself twice. That's my number one thing is I'm not shooting myself twice. Because if you shoot yourself once, the shock of shooting yourself is literally going to fucking make you not shoot again because it hurts. You're not going to do it, especially because they said they're pretty sure the second shot is what killed her. Because the thing that was really noticeable is there was not a lot of blood on her body. Because that was the other thing. If she shot all these people, where the fuck is all the blood? And why does she not have blood all over her, right? She shot, according to him, these people at point blank range with the fucking barrel of the gun on their body. You're gonna have some blowback. You're just going to. That's just what happens in the world of blood. And again, this shit was looked at in 1985. And had they secured the shit like they were supposed to, they could do a hell of a lot more now than they ever could have. But they didn't do that. So could she have done it? Yeah. but there wasn't a lot of blood on her body. And the autopsy had said that the first shot actually shot her in the throat. And what happened was the blood started pooling in her throat. And then she was shot again in the chin, and it went up and, killed her. Again, if you're shooting yourself, you ain't doing that shit twice. You're not doing that shit twice. What are you talking about? So there's that. The other part is the fact that her fingerprints were nowhere on the gun, but in one area. But the way the fingerprints were facing down means that how did she shoot herself? The fact that she had no debris or any sort of struggle marks on her body when there was a full blown out fucking drop down fight downstairs with her dad. Oh, and the silencer, there was blood inside the barrel, the silencer barrel. Now they were able to, because you know what's funny is I had this written down and then I realized that we got to talk about something else and I fucking skipped over because I'm sitting here going, why did I not say that? They were unable to conclusively say whose blood was on the silencer, only that it was backsplatter from the close contact shooting. Okay. So again, there's backsplatter from a contact shooting. Where the fuck is that on your body? Why is it not on your body? And they said that there was blood inside the barrel and they could not definitively say that it was hers. They said it matched her blood grouping, but it could also have been a mixture of June and Neville's as well. And that's one of the things that they might let him out on, is because there is not definitive proof that her DNA, her blood was in the silencer barrel, because that was one of the things they used to be able to put him away, was that her blood grouping was, because they weren't really doing a ton of DNA shit back then. It was her blood grouping, which just means that her blood type was in there, but they can't say that it was the predominant one, meaning, which to me makes no sense, because if she shot herself, wouldn't you think her blood would be all up in that bitch? All up in that bitch. Wouldn't you think that would be like the proof? Because if she shot herself in the fucking chin and she held the gun to her fucking chin.
Well, and wouldn't hers be the most fresh? So like,
right.
It's going to sound dumb because I don't know how it actually works, but like if it were to like layer up, like if she was like killed her two sons first, then her mom, then her dad, and then herself, hers would be the most fresh.
Yeah, right.
So I feel like you'd be able to pinpoint down a little bit more that it is her own. You know what I mean?
No, I know. Well, and then the thing is, the thing with Jeremy is he swears he didn't do it. He swears still to this day he did not do this. And then there's that part of me that I'm like, well, there isn't really any definitive proof that he did it either. His fingerprints are on the gun, but you know what? There were like 4 other people's fingerprints on the gun as well, because they all used it to shoot, practice target shooting, whatever. Because they just decided that it was a murder-suicide, they did not check him for any sort of like defensive wounds or struggle wounds against his dad potentially. They didn't search for clothing in his house to see if he had blood-covered clothes. They didn't do any of that. I don't think they ever did that, actually.
I mean, something that they could technically do is they could do x-rays of like his hands and see if there's any remodeling.
Yeah, but I just...
Because if he got into a full-ass fight, your knuckles and shit will at least have minor fractures to them.
Yeah, but I don't think they cared that. I just don't think they care. So anyways, I don't know that it's interesting to read where it's at right now. And they really do think that there is a chance he might actually get out of jail, because if not out of jail, he might at least get the whole life tariff taken off to where he can go get out, or at least get a new trial. And I'm on the fence. I'm on the fence because I'm sitting here and I'm just like,
I don't know. I'm kind of leaning towards.
I mean,
him over the sister.
No. I am leaning. To be fair, I don't think his sister did this at all. I do
don't
not
either.
But I am trying to decide: is his, did he really hire somebody to kill his family and he just, set it up? Did he kill his family? Did something weird happen and somebody else killed his family? I don't know. But the fact that there's no definitive proof that he killed his family, and it's such a minute amount of details that it's just kind of like, well, you have to hold somebody accountable. They held him accountable. He swears he didn't do it. And I mean, you figure he was born in what, 61, I said?
He's 63.
So he's 63 years old and he's still fighting to get out of jail right now. And there's nothing in his past that would make you go, oh God, yeah, he's going to be a murderer. Like there's nothing. So it's just kind of, it's a very tragic situation. And I do not, in any sense of the word, I do not think his sister did it. Her ex-husband continues to fight to clear her name. They were also going to be releasing, which I didn't watch, but I'm going to. They're releasing, or they did release like a docu-series type thing.
Mm-hmm.
And her ex-husband actually said, I want this to come out because I want people to realize that she is not who they fucking said she was. And I want this to come out to show you guys that Jeremy did this. So he's very much like Jeremy did it. The girlfriend says Jeremy did it. Jeremy says that his girlfriend was retaliating against him because he didn't want to be with her anymore, which I've never understood that excuse, because no woman in the world is putting their fucking ex-boyfriend in jail for fucking life because you broke up with her. That is not what people do. That is not, I mean, maybe they do, but I don't know nobody who does that. So the whole situation is very interesting. The only thing I can walk away from it and say is I 100% do not think that the sister, I do not think that she went crazy and killed everybody, which is what he wanted people to believe. And because he's the one who spewed that story, it makes me believe that he actually did this and used his sister and her mental health as a reason and an out. Also, side note, he was in the will. It was everything was left to him and his sister to split. And so
that's definitely motive for murder.
So when he died, they had asked him if he had ever seen a copy of the will, and he said yes. He said he knew it was supposed to be split between him and his sister. So 1, that's a motive. 2, he didn't get the shit. He didn't get it because I don't remember exactly what happened. I think it was June's sister was like, fuck no. Like, nope. So she fought to take his shit. And I think as of right now, he has nothing. So he's also gone to court trying to get his portion of the shit. And she's like, nah, motherfucker, you killed them. Like, again, all the family members think he did it for whatever reason. And cousins think he did it. Aunts, uncles, grandparents, they all think he did it. So it leads me to believe that maybe he did it.
There's more.
I think there's more that hasn't been told.
His history.
Yeah. I mean, he had some.
In certain behaviors or things that he said, and nobody's just come out and actually said,
well, especially
this is what he has said or done.
Well, and especially coming from a wealthier family, a lot of the times they try to keep that shit under wraps. So the more that I learned,
and who the fuck knows what happened at like boarding school.
Well, so here's what my thing is maybe that's why he went to boarding school. Maybe he turned out to be kind of an asshat. And so the dad was like, you're going to boarding school. Because I feel like that's what they do. You're fucking out. And maybe that was kind of the part. But yeah, it's just a weird case. And again, in his defense, the defense tried to say that the reason why Sheila did not have anything on her body is because she killed everybody. She removed the silencer. She removed the telescopic lens, put them back into the cabinet downstairs
where it wasn't found
the day of, cleaned herself up, and then killed herself. Like, motherfucker, no, she did not. No, she did not. So when you got defense spewing shit like that, then I'm just kind of like, listen, there is just really not, again, pretty much everything's kind of circumstantial in this. There's no definitive proof, but circumstantial evidence can put you away into jail or can put you away for life. And that's what's going on here. So my ending thoughts on this is I don't know if he did it, but I really think he did. So I really hope he stays in jail.
Motherfucker's guilty.
I hope he stays in jail because just the whole situation doesn't sit right with me.
His reactions prior and after.
Yeah.
I personally feel like is enough to not want him out with society.
That's what I'm saying. Like, to me, I'm like, oh, and he apparently, they're so all over the place. At the funerals, they would do like, they'd have their funerals and he'd be standing there crying like with his girlfriend. And then after the funerals were over, they went and had like, they go and eat and hang out or whatever. And he was like, I don't know what it said because they didn't say it, but he was cracking like really fucking crude, like disgusting jokes about family. And so it's like, again, just everybody who was around him was like,
the
his
fact that
behavior,
you were
trying to sell your fucking sister's nude. They were topless photos that he was trying to sell, which, by the way, bravo to the fucking news outlet that was like, no, like not touching that dude. No. Cause like, why would you?
First of all, that alone
is fucking weird, first of all, but also
she was over 18. I was gonna say that alone is a crime.
She was old. She was over 18, and the reason he thought it would sell is because she was an ex-model. Dude, she died, And where did you get these nude photos from, my friend? Like, what the fuck are we talking about here, bro? So anyways, that is, I told you it was a weird one. That is the story of Jeremy Bamber and the White House farm murders. So that's where we be at. Anyways, well, follow us on our socials. We got the Tickety Talk, we've got the Instagram, and we've got the X account. Follow us and share us. We are definitely international, which I love. I appreciate it. And I botch all of the fucking names of everybody's city and town, no matter where you're from, because I can't even say most of the American ones. So I apologize. I will always apologize. And other than that, I think I'm going to say catch you on the flip side, bitches.
Bye-bye.